to the Efed Podcast, the podcast exploring our fantasy wrestling hobby, where the wrestling is written, but the characters are real. Hey everybody out there in Efed land, welcome back to the Efed Podcast. I'm so excited to be joining you here today for episode 69.
No!
Heyo! We got Brian here on the show with us, producer, co-host, main event man. Brian, how you doing, brother?
I am doing fantastic. How about yourself, sir?
I'm doing so good, buddy. Glad you're joining us. Since we've gone bi-weekly, we're doing this a little less often, and man, do I miss it. I miss you, Brian. I miss our show. I miss getting down dirty, having a few drinks, and talking Efed bullshit.
Getting down dirty on episode 69. Hey-o.
Oh, you know what that means. Speaking of which, we got Tony on the episode today. That's Tony with 5 A's. Get it right, Mike.
5 A's.
Hey, Tony's on the show today. He's going to talk about his career as Dominic Sanders and Carlos Ruiz.
Woohoo?
We're going to have a lot of fun. Tony's been with EWC for some time. He's been with a number of EFEDs and now a new joinee to a new EFED that's about to open, Brian.
Say word.
Say word. We're going to reveal that here in a little bit.
Oh,
actually,
intrigue.
Today, because we talk about it on the interview, and why not spoil it ahead of time?
Mm-hmm. Never bury the lead. Always throw it out there first.
So stay tuned for before we cut to commercial breaks. We're going to make a little bit of an announcement on my side of things. Otherwise, today on the show, Brian, we've also got the EFED Spotlight, Ultimate Progressive Wrestling, Up Wrestling, otherwise known as. They're a role play fed. We're going to talk about them today, too.
Awesome.
Up, down, 69. We got them all today here. How many references can we make?
I mean, you got to get all up in them nooks and crannies when you're exploring the wide world of e-fedding in today's current state. Or, as I like to call it, fantasy wrestling.
Fantasy wrestling, or F wrestling.
Ooh.
As you can check out over at fwrestling.com. I know Chad Merritt's at it again. He's back in e-wrestling. We drag him back in, Brian. Efed Podcast sparking interest in a bunch of veterans in the game recently, a bunch of retirees.
TEFP, the Carlitos way of podcasts.
That's about it. I mean, between the Paul interview, between Jamar, between between Al Archer, all of these classic e-wrestlers coming back from retirement and listening and doing a podcast, now half of them are coming back to e-wrestling.
It's fantastic. Dare I say, you love to see it, Christy?
You love to see it, Christy. Holy shit, there it is. Guys, we're going to have a lot of fun today. I'm already excited, as you can tell. We've also got the EFED Podcast question of the week. Brian, hit us with it.
EFED hotspots. Where are you from?
We're going to answer it right now. We'll answer it on our side of things. Mikey Unlikely, the man of the hour. Too sweet to be sour. I stole it from Larry Sweeney. That's right. I'm from Ohio.
Ohio.
A geographical oddity, Ohio.
I'm a Dapper Dan man, damn it.
That's right. Brian, what about you?
I am from South Carolina. I don't really think be much of a hot spot. It seems like Ohio is a bit of an EFED hotbed.
It's kind of crazy. I've heard Ohio, Texas, where else? Chicago is a hotbed. The Northeast is a hotbed, like Maine, Massachusetts, so on and so forth. We're going to talk about that and so many more today. We're going to find out where those hotspots are when we hit that question of the week. I'm excited. Of course, you can find that question of the week over on the Twitter machine at the Efed Podcast. Check it out. That's the number one place to find news, notes, questions of the week, interview questions, whatever it is you want to participate in at twitter.com/the-efed-podcast. .com. Don't forget to check us out at Facebook.com. You can search us there at the Efed Podcast as well. Hit the follow button on both Twitter, Facebook, and the YouTube. Of course, you can search YouTube, the Efed Podcast. We're going to show up. We are the Efed Podcast for a reason. You're not going to find some other Efed.
You already know.
You already know. Speaking of you already know, the Patreon.com. Efed Podcast. Guys, if you're not part of the Patreon, now is the time to join. We're bigger and better than ever with more patrons than ever. And not to mention the video interviews.
Ooh.
Brian, I'm excited to bring these to the fans of the show. We've had a great time doing them. We've got interviews, video interviews so far up on Patreon right now with Paul Brisbane. We've got him up there with Al Larcher. And coming soon is the Tone interview on video. We did it as well. And not to mention the interview I just recorded for the next episode, also on video. We got 4 in a row coming at you.
Indeed, and the every video is a little bit different. We got the production value, on the rise.
That's right. With Brian behind the scenes killing the game with the production value.
Yeah, every video is a little different. Add a little bit, whatever. Sometimes taking little pot shots at Mikey in the lower thirds.
I love it. I love it because I'm telling jokes, the guest is telling jokes, and with the graphics and with the chyrons and everything else, Brian's telling the jokes. I have a great time watching them back. You guys should too. Check out the Efed Podcast patron over at patreon.com/Efed Podcast. Check it out, $10 and up, Legends level and the sponsorship level. Both get you access to those video interviews. We really appreciate everyone who considers it, and we really appreciate the ones already sponsoring us. All right, guys, before we move on to the commercial break, before we hit our segments on the show, I want to make a little announcement.
Ooh.
We've been doing the Efed Podcast now for,
too long.
18 months. Holy hell. We're on episode 69 of the Efed Podcast. I'm excited to bring it to you now bi-weekly because of our schedules, and we appreciate you hanging with us, and we've got quite the fan base, and the patrons blowing up and everything else. It's been exciting.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm finally happy to announce after, something like 20 years of handling as an Efeder, I'm going to be opening my own Efed.
Oh, shit!
We're going to talk about it a little bit today on the interview, but I wanted to introduce and bring to you Classic Wrestling. Classic Wrestling is going to be a micro role-play fed. I'm going to be opening up at classic-wrestling.com. And basically, it's an EFED that emphasizes the classic side of professional wrestling. Classic wrestling is based on the concept that kayfabe was never broken. And as far as the world goes, wrestling is still as legitimate as boxing and other fighting sports. It's for fans of old school wrestling. We're trying to include many of the things you're used to when you turn back the clock to the golden era. We're trying to mix elements of realism and sport, much like the NWA or Crockett Promotions. And we're also going to accept over-the-top gimmicks and comedy characters like the WWF would have had in the era as well. Brian, I'm really excited to bring it to the people. And really, Brian, this is my first Fedhead opportunity since maybe I was 16 years old. I mean, I did a little stint there with the Wrestle UTA in the Angle era, but this is my first Fed built from the ground up, working with a few folks, and I'm very, very excited to bring it to everybody out there.
Hell yeah, and it's a fantastic idea, especially, if you're going to do role play, in my opinion. Like, that 80s promo style is ripe for the picking.
It is, and it's going to be a blast because really we're not looking for the character development. We're not looking for the stories of your real life characters. We're looking for the over-top characters who are going to be in gimmick all the time. And it's a place where kayfabe is in full effect. If you break kayfabe, you're out. I mean, we're strict on that, and it's a role-play fed, 750-word role plays. Check it out. It's going to be at classic-wrestling.com. Right now, there's just a static page. Right now, it's just a static page up there, but if you want to get more information or join the Discord or check out the rules, DM me on Discord. That's Mikey Unlikely. You can find me in the Efed Podcast Discord and the Defiance Discord and so many Discords. I'm in about 15 or 20 of them. Also, you can find us on Twitter at Efed Podcast. Just DM me for more information. I'd be happy to give it to you. Classic-wrestling.com, coming in May of 2021. A new micro roleplay fed emphasizing 80s wrestling style. Get ready.
Fantastic. Studio gimmick it all, right?
That's right. Studio gimmick TVs. 4 pay-per-views a year. We're a bi-weekly fed, minimal. Obviously, all we're asking is for short role plays and segments on the shows. I mean, we're going to have some fun. We've almost got a full singles roster already. I mean, we've got, I think, 18 or 19 applications out of 24 or 25 openings. And then we're really in search of tag teams. if you're interested in bringing back an 80s in-character tag team, hit me up.
Within all of wrestling, aren't we all?
Aren't we all? You can also reach out to Fuzz. Fuzz is on our staff. Of course, he's in the Discord or on Twitter at Sean_Warstein. And we've got many, many good people on the roster already. We're going to have a blast doing 80s wrestling, Efed role plays.
Yeah, so reach out to Mikey or First Downside. I've heard about this thing, Fuzz. And yeah, good stuff.
We're going to have a great time. Check out classic-wrestling.com coming in May. The Efed Podcast is a totally free podcast that drops each and every single week for your e-wrestling ears on a multitude of apps. If you'd like to support the show, however, the best way to do so is over at patreon.com/Efed Podcast. For as little as $3 a month, you can support both Brian and myself as we crank out more e-wrestling content with perks such as early releases and special Discord designations. And if that's not enough EW action for you, jump up to the $10 a month tier and you can get a free EWT's t-shirt design, early and ad-free editions of the show, as well as access to our monthly Q&As, bad graps, and more. And if you'd like to be a sponsor on the show and get your ad played, the best way to do that is the sponsor level on Patreon with all of the previous perks plus weekly commercials on the show. Check it out over at patreon.com/Efed Podcast. We greatly appreciate your consideration.
Occupy Pro Wrestling, putting the smart back into smart mark since 2012, with a community on Discord and message boards, merchandise, a weekly vodcast on Twitch, and much more. Check out everything from us and our site partners at OccupyProWrestling.com.
Efed Tees, the #1 source for Efed merchandise, offering custom merchandise made for your wrestler, tag team, stable, or Efed. Whether you want a high-quality t-shirt, face mask, hoodie, hat, it doesn't matter. We can help you out over at efedtees.com. Do you have a custom logo for your wrestler? Awesome. We're going to slap it on a shirt and help you out real fast. If not, no problem at all. We have a custom design service too. You can work with a graphic artist to get the perfect design made for your character. Go on over to EWTees.com and click on Want a Shirt to get your shirt started. EFedTees.com.
Defiance, an angle fed boasting 8 years of continuous fantasy wrestling. Defiance offers opportunities for original characters, micros, a standalone website utilizing Backstage 3 script, and a forum hosted on the long-running FWrestling.com, as well as a roster full of some of the most experienced writers in the game. Come see for yourself at DefianceWrestling.com. That's DefianceWrestling.com.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Efed Spotlight segment here on the Efed Podcast, where we highlight a Fed that's out there, tell you a little bit more about them, and see if it's a good fit for you. Today on the show, we're talking about Up Wrestling, the ultimate progressive wrestling. They're a role play Fed, and of course, you can check them out. You over at upwrestling.wordpress.com.
Nice. So how does this Fed operate?
So obviously, if you're a fan of e-wrestling, you know how the game goes. It's kind of like e-wrestling's Dungeons and Dragons, Brian. What they've done is they take two passions and merge them together to create Up Wrestling. Their game features competitive written role plays mixed with in-character experience points, levels, traits, and dice rolls. They are role play fed, and they also incorporate many elements of role play, not just role play e-wrestling, but role play gaming. So I'm excited to talk about that. And they have shows every 2 weeks, a bi-weekly Fed, which is great for your schedule. And obviously they have pay-per-views every 2 months in that case.
As we know very well, both via Defiance and Classic Wrestling, that is the optimal schedule.
Bi-weekly is the way to go.
100%. We all got lives and things to do. We're not 15 anymore. Some of us still act like it, but most of us. What are the word limits? What are we looking at here?
So over in Up Wrestling, there are no word limits. So only written role plays are allowed, posted via Google Groups, but no limit to what you can write.
Good God.
Write to your heart's desire.
Just wild out.
Just get it out of your system and get it all up there for Up Wrestling. And Brian, as far as their active championships, they've got 3. we know what they are. I'm going to start with the World Heavyweight Championship. Of course, Up Wrestling has their own.
The big one.
That's true. What else they got, Brian?
They got the Tag Team Championships. That's the
near and dear to my heart with the Hollywood Bros.
Indeed, that's the second big one that people act like it's the lower, but it is the second big one. It's still a world championship.
That's right, and it should be celebrated as one. Finally, they've got the Sin City titles. Check them out over at upwrestling.wordpress.com. And, of course, they've got the top 10 wrestlers, Brian, in no specific order. Let's hit them. CJ Walker.
Devin Bishop.
Pixelus?
I'm glad you got that one, bud. And, of course, Jack Ruby.
There you go. Kid Diaz.
Ooh. Adam Miller.
Maddox.
Brian Black.
Ron Masterson.
And Mark Murphy.
That's right. And if you want to check out Up Wrestling, check them out at upwrestling.wordpress.com. Well, as you can find at Matt Camden 66 on Twitter. He is the Fed head, and he can give you the most up-to-date information. Check him out on Twitter at Matt Camden. That's MattCamden 66 on Twitter.
100%, and with 25 solid roster members, this is a Fed you need to check out. I mean, come on. This is Up Wrestling. Get up on this.
Get up on it. 25 people on the roster. Their people set them apart from everybody else. They have a great group that really enjoy the game and add to it with their entertaining role plays, ideas, and storylines. While they're not an angle Fed, everyone is welcome to submit ideas, and nearly everyone does, adding a lot of depth and storylines to Up Wrestling. They also have an active Facebook group to share things in and out of character. They share things in their lives, memes, reactions to the shows. They talk world events and much more. With people from the United States, the United Kingdom, and more, they get a lot of perspectives and insight that they might not normally run across otherwise. Great group of guys, great group of girls over at upwrestling.wordpress.com.
Get up on this.
Check them out, guys. They're our Efed Spotlight of the week, upwrestling.wordpress.com.
Hey, this is Al Archer. I handled Hoyt Williams, Duke Williams, all the Williamses, and you're listening to the Efed Podcast, and why wouldn't you be?
And we're back with the Efed Podcast question of the week.
Of
course, you can check it out each and every week over on the Twitter machine at the Efed Podcast. You already know Twitter. You already know how to find us at the Efed Podcast. You can also check it out on Facebook at the Efed Podcast if you want to answer there, or in the Discord. We get a ton of answers in the Discord from our community. Check it out. You can ask anybody in our Discord. Check or DM us at the Efed Podcast. We'll get you an invite into the Discord if you want to be a part of the community and actively participate in the group.
100%. If you're on Twitter, make sure you tag your post with # TEFPQOTW # EFED # EFEDS. Because they're pound signs.
That's right. We do the TEFP question of the week for sure. Otherwise, guys, the question of the week this week, we talked about at the top of the show, Efed Hotspots, where are you from? We already learned that Brian is from South Carolina. Mikey's in Ohio. How the hell we record a podcast and met each other, that's none of your business.
Oh.
No, if you've listened to the past 68 episodes, you know damn well we met through eFeds. We met in real life. We had a blast, became good buddies, and that's how we started the podcast.
Indeed, sir.
And check out atomicdropcast.com. All right, guys. Efed Podcast question of the week. What are the Efed hotspots? Here we go. Brian, up first, we got at Cross Rakoba.
Oh, Northamptonshire, England. Cross is from Cicero. Let's hope video promos don't become my only option. Let's hope not.
Otherwise, we're all screwed, right?
Hey, I am for sure.
At RL Edgar 1 is up.
Very simple answer, quick and to the point. One word, Kentucky.
Kentucky, the Bluegrass State. Pretty close to me, Brian.
Ooh.
At Titanus Sam, it's Sam Hamilton up next.
# OOC, living begrudgingly in Eugene, Oregon, but was born and raised in Tejas,
I've always wanted to visit Oregon,
Oregon.
the big brewery state.
I hear there's a significant trail one could take.
All right, moving on.
As long as you don't get
You've died of
dysentery.
At Saint EWC up next. Michael Saint,
Indiana,
That's also close to me here in Ohio.
geographical oddity.
That's what you think. We're a hotspot, Brian.
I try flying there. I'm a Dapper Dan man, damn it.
At project_EMI, it's Emmy Hirosha.
A small fishing town in Derbyshire, England.
There you have it. Up next is at Dean Rosex.
/ the only fucking place that matters, the city of Glasgow in Scotland.
There you have it. Some of our best EFED friends are from Scotland. Up next is at Adam Fear 2 on Twitter machine. Where's he from, Brian?
He's a little less aggro about it, but also from Scotland.
Nice.
Might be the Glasgow.
Scott.
Might be the Glasgow difference.
He's just not as excited, I guess.
There you go.
At JLove_EWC. Where's he from, Brian?
I'm living in Salem, Oregon,
Yep, Oregon.
but I'm from Ithaca, New York.
Ithaca, New York. At Cute Gaming Blonde is up next. Jessica Matthews, former guest on the show.
Oh, # OOC, California. Knows how to party.
California.
The Great Exodus.
Up next is at SVO owner. It's John Page.
John Page, Canterbury, United Kingdom.
UK. We got a lot of UK people interacting with us on the Twitter machine. A lot of UK, Scotland, foreign entities. Up next is at Whammy Bar. It's Griffin Hawkins.
# OOC. Hi, I'm from Delaware. Hi, Griffin.
Up next, we've got D Resden 45 on Twitter.
Pennsylvania, one of the many famous Vanias, like Transil, and that's it.
And Pencil.
Yeah, Transil, Pencil.
All right. Dresden from Pennsylvania, also attached to Ohio. We've hit every state attached to Ohio but Michigan, Brian. Up next is Akira Razor.
Ann Arbor, Michigan,
Damn it.
USA.
We've hit all of the touching states.
Yeah, the states do like to touch a lot.
They all touch me independently.
Ooh.
Up next is Armenian Beast on Twitter. It's Philip Legault.
If it's not the names of the characters, he's gonna make me say
The man has nothing easy pronounced for us. That's
nothing.
It.
I'm gonna give it a shot. Mecca like a high, Mecca like a low, Mecca like a lee. No, wait, that's Pee Wee Herman. Michelin, Belgium.
Michelin.
Is that Michelin though? Because it's MEC and it's Belgish.
At Armenian Beast, let us know, how do we pronounce your home city?
German Shepherds, home of these fellows. So
Yes.
here's the real story of this podcast. If that's a German Shepherd, if it is, how the fuck are they not from Germany? Is Belgium in Germany?
That's the story for another podcast.
Check us out on Atomic Geographicast next week.
Atomic Mystery Cast.
Join the Patreon.
All right, up next is at Ravens_Emmy. It's Mary Ellen Harrison.
# OOC, Dublin, Ireland.
There you go.
With the accent inflection and all. It's a bad one.
Also on the Twitter machine is at Reign of Anarchy.
Yeah, read that name. Go ahead.
Adriana Salvatore.
You've been doing
Suck
this too
it,
long.
Brian.
You've been doing this too long, you asshole. #, lowercase o, lowercase c. The part of Florida that sucks. So, Florida?
Depends on who you ask. Up next is at Stephen Brody NFW.
GIF, GIF, Tejas.
Texas, another geographical hotspot for e-wrestling.
But, well, of course it would be the goats from there.
Who's that?
Oh, do you not know about?
HBK, San Antonio. I'm going to be there in a few weeks.
Ooh, back on the travel game.
That's right. Meeting more e-fedders. Let's see what happens.
Mikey meets e-fedding. It's a new reality show.
Trying to avoid being murdered. Here we go.
It'll either be on Bravo or it'll be on Court TV.
Or at patreon.com/Efed Podcast. That's where you get the early access to the Bravo show.
Hey.
All right. Up next on Twitter Machine at WrestleRevo1.
Revo1, one of the early adopters of EWTs. They got a very sweet shirt over there. Sold quite a few. At Cecilia Ortiz, RP, and I, because if I recall, they're a
married
husband-wife
couple
team.
running that Fed.
Yeah. So at Cecilia Ortiz, RP, and I are from Kentucky.
You love to see it, Christy.
You love to see it, Kentucky.
Up next is at We Are OS Dub on Twitter. Another fun 80s wrestling Fed, much like classic wrestling, but they are a no limit, super awesome graphics e-Fed.
Ooh.
Check them out at We Are OS Dub on Twitter.
There you go. They are from, if I'm reading this correctly, Southampton, United Kentucky.
Another Kentuckian. No,
No?
United Kingdom.
No? United Kingdom.
Across the pond, not the bluegrass state, Brian. Not to cross the Ohio River. At A55_H01E. It's at asshole.
I've had trouble with that one in the past, and I'm glad you just did. / Canberra, Australia, the capital of the upside down.
That's pretty cool, though, in Australia. We've got everybody from almost every continent. No Antarcticans yet.
Well, yeah, it's seasonal.
We'll see what happens when the SpaceX internet goes up.
There you go.
All right, at Bane _Mac. It's Mac Bane on Twitter.
Tejas.
Tejas, also from Texas. Up next is at Vodka Marie. Brian's similar answer.
A few more letters, same result. Tejas.
Texas. Here we go. Rolling in the Lone Star State.
Everything's bigger in Texas, even the amount of e-feathers.
At Real Sister Sid, it's Sierra. Up next on Twitter.
Started out in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, currently in Oshkosh. Love that name. Found out I live fairly close to another person in this hobby. He's a swell guy.
Well, there you go. Wisconsin's a great place to be. Great drinking state. Love me some Wisconsin beer.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for, Point Place and, the hub.
One of the coolest moments of my life, Brian, I got to walk through the players' tunnel of Lambeau Stadium, one of the oldest stadiums in the NFL, and walk onto the field. It was pretty cool.
Did they give you a very, very tiny fedora first?
No, but I did buy a cheese hat, so there is
Hey, I think we have one of those coming up.
that. Up next is at Bayou's Howl Girl. Oh, I'm sorry, Bayou Showgirl.
Yeah, big difference. Oklahoma, baby!
Oh, baby.
Okies.
Okay, speaking of cheeseheads, up next is Jack Savage and
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin. Oh.
Wisconsin is fucking Louisiana all of a sudden. Wisconsin.
And he's got the gif of the Aaron Rodgers and the cheesehead. You love to see it.
You loved it.
Up next is Burning Media 1, James Edwards.
Oh, Kentucky.
Kentucky again. Holy shit, Kentucky's the hot spot we didn't know about.
Kentucky's getting it.
All right, up next is at Fury Has a Name, Brian, on Twitter.
It does.
Not Brian. Don't include Brian. Fury has a name.
OOC, I'm alive, Just kidding. This is Florida, not Tejas.
We got a Floridian.
2 Floridians.
Up next is at the Ganja Goddess. You know it's Tia Nevea.
# OOC. All lowercase. Capital ARIZONA. Arizona.
Arizona.
I hear they make a really subpar tea.
Man, my wife loves that fucking tea. It's
Never
crazy.
had
I
it.
hate it. Up next is a Sam Tolson. I thought we covered her at Tightness Sam.
This is the Sam Tolson, so Missouri now. Originally Iowa. I don't remember what the. Hold on. Are we breaking TFP kayfabe here?
Are we weird's going on? I gotta follow up on this. Sam Tightness Hamilton, Eugene, Oregon, born and raised in Texas. Now I'm confused.
What the hell going on here?
Come on, girl.
You hate to see it, Christy.
Maybe I got those characters confused. Maybe they're not the same one. That's probably the case, and I'm just an idiot. Heyo.
Oh, hey, we make mistakes because ... we drink.
We drink. Great geographical oddities. All right, up next. Long-time sponsor, great time friend. It's JC. It's our boy Jason, let's be honest.
Yes, sir.
At OCW Fed.
And if you heard his interview,
You know where he's from already.
you already know. And if you want to get more specific and go back and listen to his interview, you'd be like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Harlem, Uptown, baby.
Harlem. That's my guy. I love Jason. What a fucking guy. Up next is at the troll guy _ It's Manny.
Surprising one. Argentina.
Always like Manny. What a good guy. At the lone Ulf. It's Ulf Hedner.
Born Alaska. Living Florida.
Wow, what a change of life.
You upgraded and downgraded all at the same time.
You have more sun and more daytime in your life, but you also have Floridian. Up next is at Atara Themis.
I mean, what the fuck? Whatever. P. Sherman. 42 Wallaby Way. Enter. Sydney.
Brian, do you get the reference?
I mean, fucking Australia, Sydney, Wallabies. No, I don't.
It's Finding Nemo.
No, sorry. Don't have children.
I didn't take you for a Finding Nemo fan. Maybe a Wall-E guy.
No. If it's animated, I probably haven't seen it.
Brian skips on the anime. Okay, here we go.
Yep.
Up next is Daniels _ Brett. It's Brett Daniels.
Well, it's tough. It's tough to tell what's going on here because there's GIF and the flag and the W, and when I click on it, I mean, it's something. Is like a feedback or something going through the mics. I don't really know what's going on here. It's almost like it's making an Illinois, like
Illinois. I see what you did there.
a sickening noise. It's a very ill noise. Illinois.
It's Illinois. Okay. Up next is Aurora Graves at LV Rebel Yell 94.
Hold on, LV Rebel. Oh, Las Vegas.
Las Vegas. Did you read the answer or did you just check the username?
Oh no, I mean I see the image. I see the GIF. Oh, Mikey, we're doing a podcast here. You know, kind of playing into.
I forgot you're looking at my notes. Hi, Paul.
Hey, Paul.
At Kendrick's Cross is up next.
Indiana.
Another one in Indiana.
Quite a few for Indiana. Well, I mean, quite a few. 3, 4. Indiana.
Finally on the Twitter machine, at Dave's Characters.
Small town in England that most people outside of the area have probably never heard of. Well, I
know
mean,
that
damn.
feeling.
Try us, right? I mean, just saying, I doubt there's anyone here from Baldock, Hertfordshire, England. Dave, you are correct, sir.
You're all alone over there, buddy. Sorry.
Yeah, hey, if it's that small of a town, you'd have met him by now.
I'll have to see how far your nearest Hollywood bruv is.
Hey-o.
All right, switching over to the Discord side of things, we've got Warren up first at MDG on the Discord.
Oh, Mr. Modern Day Gladiators Deacon. He is from the heartland of America, a state that has picked the president in 13 of 14 elections. I don't know if you should post about that. O-H. You finish, Mikey, he says.
O-H-N-O. Oh, no.
Woo! Oh shit! Hold
Up next on the Discord side of things, it's EWT's best customer. It's Meg.
Meg. I live outside of Philly, in a town called. I mean, Meg, do you really want to get that specific? Whatever. You posted it in a town called Drexel Hill, where nothing interesting happens. Meg, that's incorrect. You're there. You happen.
That's right. Something interesting's happening. Up next is Fuzz, man of the hour, longtime EFED OG, Fuzz Masterflex.
Fuzz says, I'm from nowhere because I'm no one. Kidding. He says Chicago represent. Come on, Fuzz.
Nice. Chicago, great city. I had a blast there every time I've been.
Fuzz moved to Florida.
Up next is Kevin R.
Greater Chicagoland region, also representing. Kevin, stay away from Fuzz.
Also joining Classic Wrestling is Kevin, coming out of retirement. The Flying Frenchie is back.
Flying Frenchie back in effect, or at least the handler of
new character.
TEFP, legitimately the Carlitos way of Efed.
All hail Overlord Mikey. It's Pete. Pete's back in the Discord. I'm so excited.
Pete started in Jersey and worked my way south to Florida. But don't tell anyone. I'm on the run from Florida Man.
Up next is the Texas Tornado, our guest on the show today, Brian. It's Tone.
The Tejas Tornado, who apparently is from, you guessed it, folks, Fort Worth.
Like the 7th most popular city in Texas. Up next is, speaking of Brian, it's Shoot Josh.
Shoot Josh. He's close enough. I could if I needed to. Shoot Josh is in Charleston, South Carolina.
If you need a little shoot pop, then you need to hit up Shoot Josh. At Cat Passy, it's Joe.
It's Joe. He's fired. He's from somewhere that ain't Boston, so who cares? We fired him anyway.
Check out the song Massachusetts by Yelvis on YouTube.
Oh, there you go.
All right, up next is John Thompson at TW Combat.
Our old friend John Thompson, he is from East Pittsburgh, PA, Pennsylvania.
I'm so sorry for your luck, John.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hey, look. He can take solace in this, as we covered earlier in the Twitter section. He is still from probably the second most famous Sylvania.
Right after Dr. Acula.
I want to suck your blood.
Up next is at Big Elwood 9, a person I actually met in e-wrestling.
Big Elwood. He is hailing from Albany Park in Chicago.
That's right. We met at Trader Joe's Bar in Chicago. Check it out if you're ever uptown.
Indeed. Do that.
Up next is Alias on the Discord machine.
A.K.A. Elias from Melbourne. I think I'm saying that right. Melbourne, Australia.
That's right. Up next is Hi Paul. I cut off his answer, so I have no idea. I think he's in upstate New York, Brian.
Well, I mean, if we're going to pronounce things correctly, like Tejas and Melbourne, he's upstate New York.
New York.
York.
Check out Paul Scotty Flash on Defiance Radio.
Indeed. And I would like to point out that this is the one Hi Paul where we're trying to check our notes. And we can't.
We can't see it.
It's an image. It's just cut off, bud.
Hi, Paul. I cut you off. Sorry, buddy. Love you anyway. Excited for Def Radio this week. Up next is at Crossybot.
Crossybot is from Kent, England.
So many bruvs on the show. It's Billy Fields up next.
Billy Feuds is from some foreign land called Ohio.
Is that Hawaii?
Wow. There might be a strong Samoan population there. I'm not sure, or Polynesian. No, Billy is from the Ohio.
He's from the Ohio where they have nothing else to do. Up next is At That Masked Guy.
I think this is our first official Canadian.
Yes.
Winnipeg, Manitoba.
There he goes. I think that's Chris Jericho territory.
I believe so.
At Studley SWA next week's, or that's 2 weeks from now, next week's host or guest. Wow, I'm all fucked up.
Either or. I mean, he's throwing us for double loops. You can't remember when he's on, and he doesn't even want to tell us where he's from. He just wants to say the same as the Tejas Tornado, which if I recall, it's Albany, Kansas. Is that right?
It is Fort Worth, Texas, but you're very, very close.
Very close geographically. Very, very similar.
Mikey nor Brian represent modern geographical experts, so please disregard our geography.
We are far from cartographers, for sure.
We are ographers, that's for sure.
Oh.
Up next is Irwin 109, and finally on the Discord. Irwin, where are you from, buddy?
Last but not least, man, another one. We've had so many of these. Cumbria, United Kentucky.
The United Kingdom. Guys, we appreciate so much your support. It's awesome to see we got people from Australia, Canada, America,
Yes.
The United Kingdom, all over the place. Scotland, Ireland, everywhere in between. We need some more countries, Brian. What do you
Yeah,
think?
we do. We need a lot more countries.
And we learned, Brian, that not only is Ohio a geographical oddity, we got a couple, but everywhere surrounding us is also e-fetters. So just
Hey.
this part of the country is chock full.
Well, yeah, because those are all the places, if you want to go to Ohio, you have to fly to and then drive in.
You need 4 hours of downtime, so that's why you e-fed. Here we go, guys. Thanks for answering this week's Efed Podcast question of the week. Of course, you can catch it each and every week on the Twitter machine at the Efed Podcast. You can catch it on the Discord machine in the hashtag Efed Question of the Week channel. And of course, we're posting it to the Facebook. Search at the Efed Podcast. That's where you can get it. Hit that follow button each and every place. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on YouTube. Follow us everywhere you want to follow us. And check out the Patreon. All right, everybody, welcome back to another edition of Efed Podcast interview series. Today, we're joined by the man, the myth, the EWC legend. He's Tony. If you're in the Discord, you know Tony very well. He's the handler of characters such as Riptide, Dominic Sanders, and Carlos Ruiz. And feds like the OWF, the EWC, SCW, AWF, and more. And we're going to get into that, and we're going to talk about Tony. Tony, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm great, Mikey. How are you doing?
Doing great. And, of course, if you're joining us on Patreon, you can see the video session that me and Tony are doing right now, so you would have seen me just read all that stuff off. Tony, thanks for joining us. I'm excited. I'm glad to have you on. I didn't know you before we started the podcast, and I've gotten to know you very well since, and we found out we have a lot in common.
Yeah, man, this is pretty awesome. I think I signed up for it like last May. And I was like, when you told me, you're like, yeah, you're going to be sometime next April. I'm like, really? Like April 2021, you're like, yeah, dude, I got a lot of people signed up. So it finally came. And it was like I signed up for it almost just like, oh, you know, I'm quarantined, so it gives me something to do.
Yeah.
And, you know.
And here we are.
And here we are finally. I mean, I'm not even living in the same state I was in last May. So.
Well, that's awesome. Speaking of the state you're living in, that's because you're a football coach, isn't that right?
That's right. Not a lot of people know. I mean, I guess by this point, a lot of people do know, but I haven't really broadcasted it. But I am a college football coach out in Mississippi. And don't worry, not at any one of the big ones, but, you know, small college football coach. And man, it's something I've been doing since 2009. And it's a career that I just absolutely love. You know, I mean, as fun as I have in e-fedding, it's, you know, football definitely takes up a ton of my time.
It's amazing that you can do something for a living that you really love, you really enjoy your job, and then you have the cool hobby on the side too.
That's right. Yeah. And I've been able to find ways to balance it as long as I'm not, if I start working at some place that's really, really big, like a University of Alabama or something like that, then obviously it'll be a hobby I probably got to put in the drawer for a little bit. But,
that's right. We got our fingers crossed, buddy. I hope one of those bigger schools call you.
Appreciate it. Yeah, appreciate it.
Well, let's talk about how you got into pro wrestling. When did you become a fan of wrestling, and how old were you?
Well, a lot of these questions about when I started this and started that, I'm going to be a little hazy on, just because there was a period of time where I started when I was, I guess I would have been 8 years old back in '93. I don't even remember the first time I watched it. All I know is I remember the first pay-per-view that I saw. My mom ordered SummerSlam 1993 for me, and it started off Razor Ramon against the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, and it had matches like Mr. Perfect against Shawn Michaels and Lex Luger and Yokozuna, and some really good matches on that card, aside from Undertaker and the Giant Gonzalez. But that one wasn't quite as great in the whatever that match was with the black wreath and stuff like that. I got into wrestling pretty young. I was kind of surprised my mom even allowed me to do it. But from then on, it was like every pay-per-view, Survivor Series, Rumble, King of the Ring, everything.
That's awesome.
WrestleMania. So back when they only had 5 pay-per-views per year. and some of these young guys don't even realize they used to have it that way. But
now they've got 5 a month.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, they just had one last Sunday, and then we've got WrestleMania in a week and a half. So
it's crazy.
It's really crazy. And then of course I didn't really grow up watching WCW. I didn't really get into that for a few years. Once the big names started to leave WWE and WWF, when you started to see Hulk Hogan and Nash and Hall start to go over there, and Luger and Savage, then I kind of started to flip back and forth once I was getting a little bit older in my kind of, I guess, junior high days. And then once the NWO started, it was like, oh man, I got to find a way to watch both. So, all you young kids out there, if you've ever heard of a VCR, I would record Nitro, and I would watch Raw, and then the next day I would watch Nitro. Yep. Yeah.
It's great. That was the way to do it back then. And if you had that setup, that was advanced. Like you were the shit if you could watch both shows. I was flipping back and forth.
Oh, definitely. And then, once the Attitude Era hit and WCW started to kind of slide a little bit, it was pretty much all WWF for me. And I even had friends at school that, they would be watching, they see the DX stuff and everyone's on the playground doing the crotch chop and getting in trouble from the teachers by, I actually got in trouble one time because I DDT'd my friend on the playground. And he was about half my size though. So the teacher thought I was just picking on him and bullying him. And so I got sent to the principal's office. I'm like, dude, we're just wrestling, man. But, so I was pretty into it when I was younger. I mean, I had freaking posters of Sable and Sonny and Lita and all them up in my bedroom and all that.
Why wouldn't you? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, come on. But, I have to say, I think Stacy Keibler, though, is my favorite. I had to go with Stacy Keibler. If anyone asks me who my favorite diva or whatever back in the day was, it's definitely her. So,
well, we know your favorite diva. Let's talk about your favorite wrestlers. Back when you first started, who caught your eye? And then, like, up till now, talk about some of your favorites.
So, back then, obviously the first match that I ever saw on pay-per-view was that Razor Ramon and $1 Million Man match. And I always had a little bit I liked Razor back then. When you're a kid, you're cheering for the fan favorite guys. And, Luger, with his body slam of Yokozuna on the USS Intrepid or whatever it was. And, Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels when he wasn't a heel. And you like all of them. But then as I kind of go back and look in time, I find myself really leaning, honestly, I'm kind of like naturally like the heels. I've heard you ask the question about, I hope I'm not ruining a question right now, but I've heard you ask the question about like your Mount Rushmore.
That was coming next, so go ahead and hit it.
I figured. So Ted DiBiase is definitely up there.
Love
any
Ted
form,
DiBiase.
any form of the Dudley Boys, and I'll use them as 2 of the 4. I just love Bubba Ray, love Devon. It's just no matter whether they were heel or face or ECW or WWE, whatever, they were always entertaining and just really fun to watch. And then I've actually mentioned this to you before, but I think that 4th spot honestly goes to Tajiri for me.
Yeah.
I just always loved watching Tajiri. I mean, go back and watch his old ECW matches.
So good.
Even what he did in WWE, and even that stuff with Steven Regal or William Regal. I mean,
I love it.
I'd say those 4 probably. I mean, I know it's the most random 4. You got the Dudley Boys, you got DiBiase, and you got Tajiri. But
That's why
favorites.
I love that question. I love to hear different answers. I love to hear people go off the wall and just pick their favorite wrestlers. Who cares what people think, or who cares what impact they had on the business? What impact did they have on you is what's important.
Right. Yeah. They just those are the type of guys that really made it enjoyable for me to watch. I mean, there were so many others, but if I had to pick a top 4, that's definitely it.
I like it. Yeah, very, very different set of guys up there too.
And the $1 Million Man actually had a little bit of a personal thing for me. I actually went to Hawaii when I was in junior high, and I happened to meet him. It was at like a youth gathering, with my church, and he everyone kind of knows the kind of business that he does now with ministry and stuff. Well, he was given a presentation and a speech, and I got to meet him, and I got to stand there and talk to him for like 30 minutes. I had my picture taken with him. I was almost the same size as I was like 6'2", 230 pounds when I was in 7th grade, and I haven't gotten that much bigger, but I was standing right next to him, and I was like, say the same size as him, and he was like, "Man, you should think about wrestling when you grow up." And I'm like, "I don't know, we'll see." But
that's awesome. So, how did you find this weird world of e-fitting? When
AOL was really starting to like fire up back in those days, you'd see on the front page, you'd have like your personal choices that you did with your preferences, and wrestling was always one of mine on the left. And then you could you could set it up to where you go automatically to some chat rooms, and I would go to the wrestling chat rooms and stuff and talk wrestling with people. And then I'm sitting in there one time, and someone goes, "Anybody interested in joining an online wrestling federation called the OWF?" And I was like, I want to learn about it. And so this guy told me about it and told me, he's like, it's an online wrestling federation where you pretend to be a wrestler. It doesn't matter who it is. You can make one up. You can be a real wrestler. And then what you do is I put you in a match against somebody else, and you'll always get the card through email. I mean, everything was just email back then. There were no pictures, no pic faces, really any of that. And obviously, if you chose a real wrestler, you'd know who they look like. But and so like I was like, okay, I'll join, and I created Riptide, which was kind of a silly little name, but I mean, at the time I was 13 years old. I mean, I was like, Riptide, that sounds kind of cool. So I created him, and really what he was just a wrestler. Like, there was nothing special about him. His finisher for almost 20 years was just a leg drop off the top rope. And I would write these probably like 400 word promos and send them in an email to the whole Fed. And people would read them, and then of course you get to read everybody else's stuff. And I'd be seeing some of these guys that are writing, I mean, to this day would probably still be really good promos. Some guys stuck out to me in my mind as like someone was Taz, and he was really good at just being Taz. Someone was Lance Storm.
Because a lot of people write really bad interpretations of these characters.
Right. And someone was Lance Storm, but actually gave Lance Storm a good personality and was just really good at it. So like, I remember some of those guys, but I mean, I was not very good for the first probably like 3 years that I was doing this. It wasn't until I got into high school, and I kept doing it in high school, to where I was finally like, okay, I think I'm getting the hang of this. And I was writing a little bit more, writing a little better. Then kind of, I continued into college, even though it wasn't as, I don't feel like it was as popular as it was a couple years prior to that when I started. It kind of dipped down a little bit, and I was like, okay, I'm in college now. I'm still writing a dude named Riptide. And I was like, I need to change him up a little bit. I'm going to give him a real name, give him kind of a real life story, and make him seem a little more human than some guy walking around, with freaking waves on his pants, on his, tights. So I called him Dominic Sanders, which Dominic is actually my middle name. And then Sanders is just kind of close to my last name, but it's not. But so I was like, I'll call him Dominic Sanders. And then I kind of just started actually doing well with him and some of the other feds that I was in back in the early 2000s. So I just kept him going. And then for whatever reason in 2006, I just stopped. I mean, the Fed I was in with the people that I was comfortable with, it closed. And I didn't know of any other feds. I looked around. I was like, okay, it seems like this hobby's pretty much dead. I mean, I didn't know there were some out there that have been going for 15 to 20 years right now, but I just couldn't find one and didn't really want to bother that much with it. So I stopped for a while, but, got back into it 4 years ago now. Shoot, I mean, it's already been 4 years.
So in that first run, other than the first Fed you joined, what other ones stick out? Do you remember any of them?
Yeah, so I was in the OWF, which was Online Wrestling Federation, and then that one closed down. And then one of the guys that was in that Fed owned another one called Supreme Championship Wrestling. So I went over to SCW for a little bit. And then the owner of the original Fed decided he wanted to do it again, which was like 3 months later. I mean, he quit, and then 3 months later decided to
got the itch.
Yeah, so he created the new Online Wrestling Federation, which is the NOWF. They're really creative, but I joined that one. I went back to it just because I really liked that Fed head. He was a good guy. And then that one ran for a little while, and then he started to kind of, lose the luster again. So I found this other one called the Professional Wrestling Federation, the PWF. And that one ran for probably about 2 years until it died in 2006. But I actually got to know some of those guys pretty well. Like, never got to meet anybody. I've actually never met anybody in the hobby yet, but those were guys that I would talk to on, instant messenger, and ended up, when Facebook became a thing, being friends with them on Facebook. And
the real first OOC friends.
Right. Seriously, they really were. They were the first OOC friends that I really had in this hobby. And then, like I said, I got out of it in 2006, but I still actually talked to some of those guys. I've actually tried to get some to come back into the hobby. But they're like, dude, we're like 38 now. We're married. We've got kids. I'm like, so do I. Come on. But
so you took a break, and it was quite a long break until recently here, 2016, 2017. What made you dive back in, and what gave you the itch?
Well, back in 2017, when I was at work one day, and I'm just like, I'm bored. Like, I got nothing going on today. I'm like, I just started thinking about stuff, and I just started kind of watching wrestling a little bit. And I was like, man, I wonder if Efed still exists, or if they're back or whatever.
Man, so I don't know how many times on this podcast I've heard, man, I wonder if Efeds are still a thing.
Seriously. So I searched, and I found the Extreme Measures Federation, which is EMF. And I was like, okay, well, I mean, it's an Efed. Why not just give it a try? And so I signed up for it, and nowadays, with technology the way it is, you're doing everything now through a website and a forum instead of doing, sending emails to 40 people. And so I joined and made an account, and the guy accepted my account. So I made the character. I was like, let's go back to Dominic Sanders. So I brought Dominic Sanders back, and it took me a little while to kick the dust off, but started to do okay over there. And, the problem that I had with that Fed was it was one of those where the Fed head liked longer role plays.
Mm-hmm.
So
long character development.
Yeah. And it was like the more you wrote, the better chance you had to win. And so, I found out pretty quickly that my one role play with 2,000 words wasn't cutting it against the guy that was writing 4 role plays that were 4,000 words apiece.
Yeah.
And so I had to start doing that, and I was becoming more successful because I was starting to pump out 5,000 word role plays and 6,000 word role plays. And at one point in like the month before I quit that Fed, I barely won a match where I had to write 16,000 words.
Unreal.
And I was like, I can't do this, or I'm going to just be done with this hobby all over again. And so,
no, shout out to those guys though. If you can hang with that, that's a good storytelling.
If you're able to write that many words and just put out an absolute great role play, then more power to you. I just couldn't do it. I ramble way too much and start putting a bunch of stuff that nobody cares about. So
filler, you start writing filler.
Filler.
Yeah.
You know, the good thing about with technology is, you know, that Fed had a group me. So, you know, you download group me and you're starting to get to know people out of character. And bunch of the guys that were in there with me, we kind of bonded just over, you know, how we enjoyed the hobby and all that kind of stuff. And we'd had like a side group message. And so then we actually opened a Fed that a lot of people don't realize that we did, because I think it was open for 3 months.
Yeah.
The 6 of us were like, yeah, let's start a Fed. So we started Next Level Wrestling, and which is not to be confused with the current one now over on the XHF network. But we started Next Level Wrestling, and it got to the point to where one guy kind of petered out and then another one did. And by September, I was writing the whole entire show by myself.
Which wasn't the plan.
I was like, guys, I can't do this.
Yeah.
But a few of them had come over to the EWC, which, as a lot of the people listening would know, is where I kind of settled down. So that's kind of where I've been now since 2017.
So in 2017, you joined the EWC. You go in as Dominic Sanders.
I actually started off there for the first couple months as Carlos,
a
character I created like 2 months prior. I was like, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to try this different character and try something brand new. He's a Rick Martel pick bass. Went a little old school with him. I made him, even though Rick Martel is not Spanish at all, I made him from Spain. And in my role plays, I was writing like broken English and using some Spanish, thrown in a little bit of Spanglish, you know, and I was doing all right with them. And then once I decided to leave the EMF, I brought Dominic over. So it was February of 2018 when I actually finally started competing with Dominic over in the EWC.
So when you first joined with Carlos, what's your first impression of EWC? What kind of things were new to you? And basically the size of the place is enormous. Talk about how shocking that is for a new handler.
It was a shock, especially like pro boards. I know there are a lot of people that don't like pro boards too much, but I'd never used it before. So I was brand new to it. There were so many just links and tabs and folders, and I'm just like mind blown. I had no clue where to go, I didn't even know where to sign up. I heard there were 4 brands, and I was like, which one do I sign up for? It's like, well, do you want to do this? Do you want to do this? It's like, I don't know. And so
I never had the option.
Right. It was one of those things where it's like, okay, shows are on Saturday, deadlines on Friday. Okay, I'm good. And this one gave me options. So I was a little bit mind blown at first. And a lot of people who have joined that Fed have been, and there are other Feds out there that have kind of the same format and structure that, you have. If you don't know what you're walking into, it's different. But I got the hang of it within a few months, which is why pretty much why I decided to bring that second character in with Dominic. But it was definitely different. The people. I mean, there were like 80 to 100 different handlers. I mean, I've never seen that before. Like those email Feds I was in, you're like talking about 30 to 40 people, and now it's like 80 to 100, and it's just like, how are there so many people here? But yeah, that's it was a little mind blowing at first, a little overwhelming. But once you kind of get the hang of it, then you're all right. I mean, I had the same feeling like 2 months ago or a month ago when I decided to join How, and I was like, I don't understand the layout of this website, and I didn't get it. But eventually, I was like, okay, I think I understand. So
yeah. Well, EWC, you're there, you're getting started, you bring in a second character now. What about some early successes and feuds that really stick out to you?
Probably the earliest feud that sticks out to me was with Griffin Hawkins. A lot of people might see him on Twitter as Miami Bar.
That's right.
He actually is getting inducted into the EWC Hall of Fame this year.
Hey, shout out to Griffin.
And yeah, great. It's great for him. I think the handler's name is Eric, if I remember correctly. So congrats to you, Eric. You know, a lot of people know Griffin Hawkins. He made the top 100 list that you put out a little while ago.
That's right.
You know, he and I had started a feud back then in 2018, Dominic, and went back and forth for a little bit. And we had a match where we teamed up against, you know, a tag team. We had a match where we went against each other to a draw. You know, we had a title match at one of the pay-per-views and a triple threat with somebody else that I ended up winning. And then after that, we had 2 more title matches that he ended up taking the title from me. So, I mean, we went against each other probably 7 or 8 times that year. And that's probably one of my most memorable feuds that I had, especially early on.
That's cool. That's cool that you have that. I mean, Griffin Hawkins, yeah, very, very great follow on Twitter. Very active and always, you know, shouting out the community. So love to see that.
Mm-hmm. And then, you know, I didn't have a whole lot of feuds for the next year or so. There were guys that I faced here and there, but I wouldn't say I had a feud with anybody until probably late 2019. Jordan Sharp, who. You know, if anybody that knows him, I think he might be signed up to be on your podcast here in a few weeks or a month or so. I don't know. I might be wrong. At one point, I remember seeing his name, but he and I started. We were like, you know what? Let's start a feud. And so back in like November 19, we started it, and we didn't end it until September of 20.
Wow.
I mean, so we went on for about 8 months, going back and forth.
In a role play Fed.
Yeah, in a role play Fed, and he we had a match actually last May that I'm still really proud of, and he beat me. It's a crazy train match. So the pay-per-view was held in Glasgow, Scotland, but we started the match down in, I think it was London, and they got on a train and they fought on the train all the way up to Scotland. And the only way you could win was 1, you could throw your opponent off the train, you automatically win. Or 2, you can gain pinfalls and submissions, and whoever has the most by the time you get to Scotland wins. And it was for a championship. And I was a champion at the time. Well, I wrote the match, and because it's obviously going to take 3 hours to get from London to Glasgow on a train, I wrote it to where it was in like 6 different segments. So the very beginning of that pay-per-view was the first segment. Then we'd cut back to it later on. We'd cut back to it later on. And finally, the finish of the match, which was the main event, they were getting almost to Scotland, and I had him knock Dominic off the train and, you know, land in a big patch of grass and broke his wrist and ribs and stuff like that. But you know, he and I wrote some really good stuff against each other that I'm still proud of, and I've always been proud of Jordan, because he's one of those guys that he works really hard at this hobby, and he really cares about this hobby. A lot of people know that, whoever knows Jordan. So.
Yeah, that's great to see. I mean, 2 great feuds in EWC while you're writing role plays. Feuds, especially long-lasting ones, because feuds, you see them more often in angle feds or somewhere where you can contribute more to a story. But I love that you guys do it with the segments on the shows. You guys write great shows. What about championships? You mentioned you were a champion going into that match. Talk about some of the early titles you held in EWC.
Yeah. Well, just so I don't make this completely EWC, I know a lot of people are probably like, gosh, this guy's talking about one Fed, but, you know, I was, when I was first doing this, the first time I was in the hobby, I'd won an Intercontinental Championship in the PWF. I'd won a Hardcore Championship in the NOWF. And then when I restarted back in the EMF, I won an Intercontinental Championship. But yeah, most of my stuff has been in the EWC. I've, tag team championships with Ace King. People have heard that name around a little bit.
Also made top 100 list.
Yeah, also made the top 100. Ace King and I were tag team champions. I won the Indie Championship, which is their prime brand main championship. I won the International Championship, the Television Championship, and then I was the undisputed champion for 7 months, I think, which is the EWC's top championship. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's something I'd never done until 2018. I never expected to do it. When I restarted this hobby back in 17, I was like, yeah, I'm just doing it for fun. And then people started telling me, they're like, you're kind of a good writer, man. I'm like, well, I mean, I don't really see it, but they tell me that. And so I kind of started, I was like, okay, well, maybe I can be a champion. And so I made it my goal, and I finally did it. And never since then, since I lost it, ironically, to Ace King, when he beat me for that championship, I was kind of like, okay, I can do kind of whatever I want now, because I accomplished what the main goal. Everyone wants to at least win a world championship or an undisputed or universal championship. So I accomplished my main goal, and I was happy about it. And I've just kind of been playing the game now for the last, year and a half. So
since then, what have you been up to?
So back in December, I retired Dominic. I had his last match, made it an even 100 matches in the EWC.
Nice.
Got to do it against a guy named Cyrus Black, who, out of character, has become one of the guys that I talk to the most in this hobby. And I told him, I was like, man, you got to be my 100th last match. And so we did it at WrestleFest this last December. I was able to come away with the victory, and then I retired him, and then now I'm working as a staff member over in the EWC. Don't have a whole lot of characters in any other feds. I mentioned I joined How a couple weeks ago, just with a new project, just honestly for fun. I guess it was about a month and a half now, but did it for fun, just kind of wading into it, see how it goes. And then, I just joined a different fed this morning, as you would know, but I don't want to give away anything there, though. So.
No spoilies. Yes, no. By the time you've heard this, I probably have announced it. So, yes, Tode is in classic wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Very excited to have you on, bud.
Yeah, but over in the EWC, I don't want to have a character over there, because even though President Mac is pretty good about, if you want to have a character just to play with, you can. Obviously, he won't let us win a title or anything like that. But if we want to have a character to play with, we can. But I didn't really want to dabble where I was. I don't want to mix business with pleasure, basically. So
there you go. It's tough being on staff, and then you don't want to get a reputation for being on staff and a character. It's very, very easy for people to make a stretch.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I'm up to now. And ever since I retired, it's been a little bit easier. Sometimes I'm like, man, I got the itch to write, but I got nothing to write. And, but that's fine.
And now you got a couple of side projects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I had to start the side projects just because I knew I wouldn't sit still for very long, but I got to keep Dominic retired. That was one thing I told myself. I was like, whenever you retire Dominic, he's got to stay retired. Because, really, I wrote him for 22 years.
That's a long career.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
all right.
In character, he's pushing 40 anyway. So,
time to refill our drinks.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's going to get real loud for a second, guys.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep it quiet. Sorry about all the ice, everybody.
I'm doing it right in front of the microphone. I don't care.
For those of you wondering at home, Mikey, I think, is drinking margaritas.
Margaritas.
Tone is drinking Jim Beam and water.
There you have it. Jim Beam and water. I got 1,800 margaritas. We're going ham here on the Efed Podcast.
And you're talking about two smart people, though. Both of us literally have bowls of ice and our mixers and our liquors just like ready for us. We don't have to get up and walk away.
That's right.
We came prepared, guys. We came prepared for this.
We are ready. So, Tony, that brings us to today. That kind of wraps you up, right?
Pretty much. I think I just killed this in like 33 minutes. All right, let's just drink.
Amazing.
No.
Well, hey, real quick, let's talk about the Efed Podcast Discord. You've been a great addition to the Discord. You've really livened it up, and it seems like you made a lot of friends over there as well.
Yeah, I joined it once, and I think I left the Discord after like a week. I was like, I'm not even using it. I just closed it and went out. And then I joined it again because I wanted to sign up. I felt compelled to sign up. Joined it again. And then, of course, when I did that, I was like, well, I can't just leave and then come back in like 3 months and say, okay, I'm still here. So I I'm not even gonna lie to you. Sorry, no offense to anybody, but I had it muted for a while.
Brother, most people have it muted, and I understand it. It's a very active chat. It's not the Fed you're in. I completely understand, and I think our people understand because they've muted it as well. So we appreciate everybody who participates. We got quite a few members. I get it. It's loud.
Yeah, yeah, and so I finally unmuted it. I was like, you know what? I want to get to know more people. One thing that I've kind of taken from this hobby is that a lot of people out of character, one, are just looking for friendships and kind of family relationships. There are a lot of people out there that maybe they're not as lucky as I am where they have a family, where they're as lucky as I am to where they go to work every day and they love doing what they do. Maybe they're not as lucky as I am to where they can they can walk down the street and just say hi to people. I mean, maybe that's just not how they are. That's not how their life is. And they come to this, though, the same reason I do, to get away, to talk to people about the same stuff that I like to talk about. And even though it's all on the internet, they may never get on a voice chat. They may never get on a video call. They can still sit behind the keyboard. Yeah, and they can still sit behind the keyboard and feel like they're part of something. And so I wanted to be that kind of person to where I want to get to the point to where people can just rely on me to be there. Another thing I've taken out of this is there are a few people that struggle with mental health, and mental health is a big thing these days. So like what I did a couple of months ago over in the EWC, now that I'm staff, is I told them, I was like, look, I want to be everybody's mental health liaison because I'm blessed enough to where I'll have my moments, but for the most part, I don't struggle with a lot of stuff. And I'm very blessed about that. So I told them, I was like, look, here's my cell phone number. If you feel comfortable enough, text me and I'll keep your information. And if you ever disappear, for whatever reason, or we stop hearing from you for a while, I'm going to get a hold of you just to make sure you're okay because I care. And I'm not trying to be high and mighty or anything on anybody else. It's just kind of how I am. Like I'm just a caring person. I can come off as an a-hole sometimes, but
we know.
Yeah, I know. I really can, especially once we get about 2/3 through this bottle of Jim Beam. I'm just going to start being that guy probably. But really deep down, like I don't want to see anybody leave this hobby or this community because they feel like they're not welcome or they're not part of it,
or they don't have someone to talk to.
Right, and so that's why I'm trying to put myself out there. I mean, yeah, you talk about 10, 15 years ago, hell, probably even 5 years ago, giving your cell phone number out to people you met on the internet is a big no-no.
No.
but I mean, really at this point, like, come on, I'm 6'3", 290 pounds, and I'm a football coach, which means I'm surrounded by 100 football players that half of them are 6'3", 290 pounds. So I feel pretty comfortable that I'm going to be safe. And if I'm not, then that's my own mistake. But, I don't have any problem with that. And as long as somebody feels included and they feel like they're actually wanted and loved, that's kind of where I've taken this hobby. I'm trying to put it up to the next level in my own responsibility to try and keep people happy and feeling like they're really wanted. So.
Well, I'm not as big as you, Tony, and I've met many Efed handler, and I've been safe as hell. So shout out to Efed and great community. I'm glad you're doing your part and helping people. So if you guys need help, here's Tony's phone number. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. Hey, just send me a PM. If I know you decently enough, it doesn't matter if we've talked one time or 100 times. If I feel comfortable giving it to you, I'll give it to you. That's fine. But I guess that brings me back to the original question. I wanted to get to know more people. So I started to talk more in the Efed podcast, getting to know people like Linz and Feuds and Megan and Kevin and Warren. I mean, all those people that are in there every day talking every single day. All the shoot pop people,
pop.
And so I've gotten to know a bunch of people through it, and it's been fun getting to know more people. I mean, it's a good community, and I think a lot of the people in this hobby are just good-hearted people.
Absolutely, and we really appreciate you joining our Patreon recently. You've been a member for a couple of months now, so shout out to you, Tony. Appreciate your support, buddy.
Yeah, I think it's actually been like 6 months now. I looked at it the other day. I was like, shit, I've given him $70, $60. There's the first one. I told
First
you
of all,
start dropping bombs.
First of all, you've given Brian and I. It's a team effort here.
I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry, Brian. Yeah,
So-
take my money.
So what you think, you cut it in half, and then you apply taxes, because never mind. All right, so here's what happens. We're going to go through these Twitter questions. Are you ready, Tony?
I'm ready. I'll admit I pre-read a couple of them. I'm excited to answer some. I'm not excited to answer some. So we'll see how it goes.
All right. Cheers, buddy.
Yeah, cheers. I better take a nice big swig before these.
Mm-hmm. At Ace King EWC, will Carlos ever convince anyone he's actually from Spain and not Mexico?
Okay, so I got a backstory of this one. One of the first things that happened when I joined the EWC, I had a match with Carlos against a guy. I'm not going to name his name, but his character called Carlos like a smelly Mexican. And first of all, his role play got disqualified and removed from the boards. Let's just go ahead and the EWC staff took care of that really well, handled it very well. But in character, what I did was I wrote a role play where Carlos basically gave a geography lesson to the guy with maps and everything. Like I literally took maps and like circled Spain and I circled Mexico, and I was like, these are not two same countries. They're different, blah, blah, blah. Don't even really speak the same Spanish, and kind of like went off on it. I mean, that was probably one of the better Carlos role plays I ever wrote, because I kind of wrote it angrily.
Yeah, you were impassioned. You were ready to say, oh, not only did you do me wrong, or not only did you do wrong, but you did the character wrong. So let me get you.
Right. Well, and then maybe a month and a half ago, so I started using Carlos when I moved over to the XHF network. I joined the AWF, which is the Ascension Wrestling Federation.
Yep.
I started using Carlos over there, and people started to like Carlos, so I kept him going. And I don't know, maybe a month and a half ago, the guy I was going against basically said, I'm going to send you back to Mexico where you belong. And again, I was actually, I used the same exact map as I used in that first role play 2 years prior.
It's already been circled.
Yeah. And so I just pretty much wrote the same role play and was like, okay, here's the difference between Mexico and Spain.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why Ace is asking that question, if he'll ever be able to convince anybody. Because right now we're talking about two people that have gotten confused between Spain and Mexico. So I'm willing to give geography lessons if anybody needs it.
Not only emotional or mental support, but geography lessons. The man is, in football lessons, the man's a saint.
Football lessons for sure. Like, I'm not going to lie to you. I've gotten in football arguments with Mikey on a couple occasions, like heated to the point to where I wanted to leave his Discord, but I am passionate about the sport.
The same as I am very passionate, and I love to argue sports. I absolutely love it because I love to throw stats in. I love to go back and forth. I love the banter. And Tony and I got heated a few times, but we made good. All is well. And
you know what's funny is the argument was about Dwayne Haskins. What happened to him?
He's a Steelers backup.
He's not a starter.
Well, that's because they did him wrong. Okay, moving forward. What would it take for you or Dominic Sanders to lead a Hook 'em Horns chant?
Not in a million years, Jordy. Not in a million years.
Quick and to the point. Stranglemania aside, have you missed role-playing as Sanders since retiring from full-time competition?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it's still fresh. It's only been 4 months since my last Dominic Sanders role play.
Yeah.
He says Stranglemania aside because actually last night was Stranglemania in the EWC. And on that card was just for fun, because President Mac and I both wanted to write something. We came up with an arm wrestling match between Dominic Sanders and President Mac for charity. And so we each put out a 500-word just shoot only role play His was masterful. I'm not even gonna lie. He actually did an audio role play where he did it as Randy Savage, and it was really fun that he did. And then what we did was we put a poll on the forums and let the members of the Fed decide who wins, which actually we're a little disappointed that only 16 people voted. We're talking about a Fed with 80 plus people and only 16. You guys are all in trouble for that. But only 16 people voted, and it actually ended up being 8-8. So I wrote the match to where we ended in a draw, where both of us got knocked out. And long story short, because Stranglemania is it's an event where everything's hardcore. So we had people with tasers and thumbtacks and stuff around, and people would be shocking the competitors during the arm wrestling match. And so Mac and Dominic both got tased out during the arm wrestling match and ended in a draw. So, but yeah, I miss it from time to time, but it was definitely his time to be retired. Writing the same guy over and over again for 22 years, you can still do it, but I know there's still people that do it, but it was just time for me to do something different. So
good questions from your buddy Jordy.
Mm-hmm.
Up next is at Memphis Tommy, the Memphis mouthpiece, Tommy Love. Any truth to the rumor that you're changing Dominic's last name to Love because Tommy is the father Dominic always wanted? Asking for a friend. He's taking a long drink before answering this one.
Yeah. Anybody that knows the handler of Tommy Love knows that question was coming. But
another great Twitter follow at Memphis Tommy.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. If you guys ever get a chance to read any EWC stuff, just look out for Tommy Love. Seriously, those segments that he puts are just gold. I would go back and look at WrestleFest in 2019, and you'll thank me. But no, he will not be changing his name to Tommy Love or to Dominic Love anytime soon, even though Tommy Love kind of works a little bit. So.
Tommy Love, I like that. At the Ruzy one, Ruzilla, did you take any money to say that the Ruzy one is your favorite wrestler? Yes or no?
It doesn't take any money to say that. Actually, Ruzilla, I will say Ruzilla is somebody that I just met in this hobby probably in the last 2 months. He's brand new, hasn't been here very long in the EWC, but he has a character that's really fun to read, and he's becoming one of my favorite. Just click on his stuff and see what the hell he's going to talk about. And no, I didn't have to take any money for that, but you can still give me money if you'd like to, Ruzy. Now, we do give him crap, though, because he is from Oklahoma. And as you can see from my T-shirt, for those of you guys watching, I'm from Texas. So
there you go. I am not from either. Okay, moving on.
You are from where everybody else in this hobby is from,
yes, Ohio. I am from a geographical anomaly. At the_Gabby_V. Who puts tomato juice in their beer?
All right. So this handler, his name is Craig. I'm just going to put that out there. Craig. Listen, Craig, tomato juice in beer is amazing, especially when you're hungover. And considering as much as I tend to drink, I'm almost always hungover. So, and especially, look, if you buy Milwaukee's Best because you're on a budget, and Milwaukee's Best 12-pack costs $7 or $8 or whatever, and it doesn't taste that great, what do you do to make it taste better? You add something to it. So you add a little bit of tomato juice, and all of a sudden you got a michelada, you got a red beer, whatever you call it, and it tastes a lot better, and you're still getting all the alcohol content. So
you love to see it.
Come on. Another thing that I can do other than mental health and football lessons is teach you how to drink. So
there you have it. At Lexi Gold 13, when are we going to see our characters teaming or facing off? Much love.
Whenever the day is that we're in the same Fed together, I guess. I don't think that Lexi and I have ever been in the Fed together, but we have that. She is one of those that we've gotten to know each other through the Discord, through the Efed Podcast Discord. And one of these days, Lexi, we'll figure something out. and maybe I'll join whatever Fed you're in, and we'll get something going.
We're going to move over to the Discord side of things.
This is also known as the Brock session.
He told me, he said, I'm going to sprinkle questions in between every question.
I'm a little mad, honestly. He kind of left a lot on the table, I feel like. I left him probably 30 questions for his interview.
See? Slacking, Brock. Slacking. Up first is Studley from the SWA. Name a rival that you wouldn't mind working with as a tag team partner.
You know, that's kind of a good question and kind of funny because even though Ace King and I never really had a big rivalry, we did have quite a few matches against each other in the EWC. And then after the fourth time, I think, that I couldn't beat him, I approached Jordy and I was like, look, man, what do you say? Let's say we go for the tag titles. And so we joined the tag team, formed the Diamond Dogs. Don't know where we got the name. It was actually our second choice. The first one ended up not working out. If you have questions about that, you can direct them at Ace King, whatever is EWC _ on Twitter. But we formed the Diamond Dogs and we entered into a tag team tournament for the championships. And we went through, I think there were a total of 14 teams. Went through 4 rounds, I believe it was, to get to the championship round, and we won. You know, so that's kind of one of those instances where I actually was able to go with somebody that I'd had a little bit of a rivalry with, and we put out some really good work, which was fun too because Dominic was a heel. Still kind of ride him as a heel, but he was a heel, and Ace King was a little bit more on the face side. Probably a little closer to a tweener, but he definitely was not a heel. So we kind of had a little bit of a yin-yang dynamic, and it worked out really, really well for us. So
that's pretty cool that you could do the feud, you could battle back and forth, and then team up and win the big one.
Also, Studley, if you're listening, I saw your note today that you're from Fort Worth, Texas. So shout out to you for being from the same city as me, man.
There you go. And he's also coming up quickly here on the Efed Podcast. I think next 6 episodes or something. Very good. Up next is Kevin. Kevin on the Discord wants to know, how did you settle on 5 A's in Tone? Tony!
I think that was all Lindsay. I think that was she came up with that. You know, Tony, every single time she started to put it had 5 A's. So then I had to make it a thing where if you put 4 A's or you put 6 A's or 1 A, you were wrong. So it's Tony with 5.
Mom knows best.
Mom definitely knows best.
Up next is at EWT's best customer. It's Meg. Tony! She had to say it too. She's got like 7 Y's in there too.
That's all right.
What advice would you give an up-and-coming E-Fedder?
If you're new in this hobby, honestly, I would just say don't let the first 2 or 3 months of your career doing this get to you. Like, you're not going to be perfect, and you're not going to step into this and just be the best rider. And you never will, no matter where you are. Even though you think you are, and it's going to be frustrating. You're like, man, I'm losing. I'm pretty sure, like I said earlier, I lost for like 3 years before I finally got a little bit of the hang of it. It's a hobby that you need to understand that there are hundreds and hundreds. I mean, how many people would you say is in this hobby?
Fuck. Thousands?
Okay. You're talking about thousands of people that are really good riders. No matter what Fed you're in, you're going to have people that are going to be really good riders. If you're put up against those people, don't see it as, oh, I've got no chance. See it as they're putting me up against somebody to see what I have. And, don't ever look at it as a negative situation. Always look at it as a positive. And if you need help, don't be afraid to ask for help. I've had plenty of people reach out to me and ask me, like, hey, can you read my stuff? Tell me what it is I'm doing wrong, what it is that I can do better. And I mean, I'm happy to do that. And, especially now that I'm not really active role playing, I'm happy to help other people become what it is that I eventually kind of became. I still don't see myself as being one of the best. I mean, when President Max said I was going to join the EWC Hall of Fame this year, I was like, there's no way that there's not somebody else more deserving than me. But I'm still going to try and help anybody out that I can. And plenty of young people out there that haven't been in this hobby and people that haven't really done it, even if they aren't young. So I'd just say just keep at it. Don't let the first couple months really get to you. And if you need help and you need guidance, just reach out to somebody that can, you know.
It's great advice. My first few months were a train wreck.
Mm-hmm.
Who would you say is your toughest opponent?
Hands down, Ace King. You know, I've faced a couple people once or twice and weren't able to beat them. But Ace King, like I said, I've faced him, I think 4, maybe 5 times now, one-on-one. Never beaten him. Jordy's an amazing writer, even though every single time he posts something, he thinks that he's going to lose. And he's an amazing writer. And he's somebody that I look up to as a person. He's a good person. And we've had some fun back and forth together, and we had some fun, you know, doing stuff together. So he's probably been my toughest rival, but the toughest person I've ever gone against. Probably the next toughest would be Cyrus Black, who I mentioned earlier. Luckily was able to beat him in my final match, but before that, I think I was 0-3 or 0-4 against him. Between those two, I think I had 31 total losses in the EWC out of my 100 matches, and those two combined for like 9 of them. So they were just unreal.
Your best accomplishment in the game?
You know, kind of what I talked about earlier, just being able to win a world championship or an undisputed championship was one. But as far as actually an accomplishment, I'd say just being able to meet new people and actually get out of my shell a little bit. I think this actually helps me a lot with what I do in real life. Being able to just talk to people, sit here on an Efed podcast for an hour on video with somebody that I've really never talked to before. I mean, just on voice once in a while, but to sit here with Mikey and be able to do this is not something I could have done 10 years ago. I think just my biggest accomplishment is being able to get out of my shell and become just a more social human being. And excuse me, sorry, getting to that point to where the whiskey's starting to kind of hit a little bit, but I think I think it's made me a little bit of a better person. I know it's kind of cliche and silly, and some people listening to this are probably like, you're an idiot. But I think it really has made me a little bit of a better person, just because I've made more relationships and met people that I would never probably meet them outside of this hobby. And it's gotten me to appreciate more people. So
I think it's a great answer, and something that's not necessarily, you know, your best accomplishment in the game is outside of the game. It's about making friends and becoming a different kind of person. Expanding your social life. So, green apples or red apples?
Man, you know, that's a tough choice. I like both. For a long time, probably until 5 years ago, I didn't like either. And then I really started to like apples. I think if you're talking about eating the whole thing with the skin, I'd go green. But red apples are pretty good. Fuji apples are probably my favorite. So
there you go. For all your apple answers. Up next is Brock. Why is Brock the bestest?
Wait, before I get to Brock, I will say apple whiskey might be my favorite.
There you go.
Why is Brock the bestest? Well, before we got on here tonight, he actually helped me with the sound test to help make sure that my mic and everything was working. So I guess because he's always there, but he really is always there. I'm gonna brag on Brock a little bit. He may not like to hear this, but I'm gonna do it anyway.
He loves it.
He freaking loves it. The guy is an ass, but he's got a heart of gold.
Yep.
A couple of years ago, there was another E-Fedder that we knew was going through a really tough time, especially around the holidays. I think it was Christmas, and it might have been Thanksgiving, one of those 2 holidays. But he was like, Tony, we got to help him out. Like, he is struggling and going through some really tough stuff. There's no way he's going to be able to have a proper, fun holiday. And so 2 of us, and it was his idea, and he forked out most of the money for it, but the 2 of us went in and bought I mean, there's like a turkey dinner or a ham dinner and all the sides and pies. It was like 4 pies. I was like, dude, why do you need to buy 4 pies? But Brock was like, what? I just got ambitious. And I was like, all right, okay. But this guy's got a true heart of gold. I mean, as much of an a-hole as he can be, sometimes this guy is literally probably the nicest person I've ever met in this game. And I look up to him from a sense that even though he'll blow your eardrums out with his voice, true story, by the way, he'll blow your eardrum out with his voice, but he will also take the shirt off his back and give it to you if you were cold. And so that's why Brock is the best. Yes. And now I feel like I need to throw up because I said way too much good shit about Brock.
At John Thompson, TW Combat. Meg already asked it, but damn it, it's my question. What do you consider your greatest accomplishment in the hobby? We're not going to answer it again. Thanks, John.
Just hit rewind and listen to it again.
What do you consider your greatest disappointment in the hobby?
Ooh, that one's a tough one. Let's see. I would say my greatest disappointment is probably stopping for 9 years or 11 years, I guess it was. Not really trying to stay in the hobby. I didn't give it that much effort, but of course, I mean, I was 23 years old at the time, but didn't realize how much this hobby meant until I got it back in 2017. I mean, it's a good hobby. It does a lot for you too. I mean, it turns people that can't write into writers. It turns people that have no social life into social people. And it does a lot for you outside of actually just being a wrestler on the internet. And, for 11 years there, I was doing other shit like working in bars and, I was starting my career and all that, but, there wasn't anything that I didn't have any hobbies. And, I used to just sit back and drink and watch TV. Now I sit back and drink and Efed. So, no, but really, I'd say probably my biggest disappointment was leaving the hobby and not trying very hard to get back into it because it's a good hobby. So,
if you could pick the greatest era in music, whatever genre you'd like, what genre is it and when would it be?
I mean, no matter what, I always go back to like 80s hair bands. I mean, I love listening to anything 80s, and you're talking about like Motley Crue, and those type of bands. I mean, even Steel Panther. Not a lot of people know who Steel Panther even is, but if you don't, go listen to them because they're awesome. So I'd say probably 80s hair metal. I mean, it's for a while there. I had a radio station out in Texas that's all they played. And I was like, this is the only radio station I need. So.
Shout out to John. He always throws us with one unique question and with the rest. So I always appreciate it.
Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers to John. Up next is Hi, Paul. Hi, Paul. If you were to describe this hobby to someone who was completely unaware of its existence and not a fan of wrestling, but you wanted them to understand how important it was to you, what would that sound like? Wow, what a question.
Yeah. I'd probably, honestly, the first thing I'll do is ask, like what their favorite hobby is, which a lot of people would probably be like, I like music. And, okay, do you like going to concerts? Yeah, I like going to concerts. Like, well, every time I write a role play or every time I read a show, it's like going to a concert. You get the performance that that hobby gives you, whether it's listening to music and going to a show or reading a pay-per-view online. That's the culmination of all the practice and the work that you put into it. I guess that's probably the best way I'd describe it.
I mean, it's pretty quick and simple.
It's a great question, though. Like, I've never really thought about that. A lot of people that are listening to this who really know me, they know that I'm actually kind of a closet Efeder. Like, nobody outside of the Efed world knows that I do this. Not my friends, my family, nobody knows. it's just something I kind of keep to myself. But if they ever were like, they look over my shoulder like, what's the Efed podcast? I'm like, oh, okay, well, here we go. But,
and then you get them to listen. So
yeah, and I'd make them listen to Mikey Unlikely for 17 hours.
There you have it. Appreciate that. Great question, Paul. I'm excited to hear a lot of people. I'm going to start asking that one on the show. Up next is Brock. Is that a surprise to you, Tony?
Not at all.
Does this hobby fill a competitive void for you?
It does. Not so much, obviously, now that I'm mostly retired. Being an athlete, being a former football player. Actually, I grew up playing sports. I played ice hockey when I was a kid. Played a little bit of soccer, very minimal. I was very bad. I was a fat kid, not very good at soccer. Played some soccer, played like junior high softball. I was actually a shot putter in high school, pretty decent shot putter. And of course, a football player. I've always been competitive, especially, you grow up. I had an older brother and an older sister. My sister's 4 years older than me, and my brother's 5 years older than me, so I was always the little one getting picked on, and so I kind of had to learn how to defend myself and be successful. So it's just kind of been ingrained in me since I was a little kid. But the hobby itself, now that I'm not an athlete, it did give me an outlet before I retired my character. Gave me an outlet to really just be like, okay, I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna win. And now I kind of don't really know what to do with myself now that I kind of retired. But, I think that's probably why I joined ClassicWrestling.com.
Classic-wrestling.com.
Oh, I'm sorry. Classic-wrestling.com.
.com. This next one's from Pete. All hail Overlord Mikey. Love that name. Is your mom hot? Is she single? Pouring one out for Rick today.
Yeah, Rick.
Cheers to Rick.
Cheers, man. Asking if my mom is hot is a little bit of a weird question, but I will say, I feel like I'm a decent looking guy. My mom had something to do with that. She's a good looking lady.
You got it from your mom.
I'm 36, but my mom was born in 63, so she just turned 58 last week. So she's not that old, and she's a decent looking lady, pretty lady, and she is single. She's been single since like 91. So, Rick, anybody else out there, take a stab at it, whatever. What they say I won't say that. Never mind.
Thanks for the question, Pete. Up next is Brock. Well, this one's from Anna.
Mm-hmm.
What's a character concept that you've encountered that you wish you'd thought of first? Good question.
Oh, man. I think that one of my favorite characters that I've read in recent years, obviously, you go back to the older stuff and it's not quite as good, but in recent years, one of my favorite characters that I've read is Alex. I know he's been on here before. He talked for about 4 hours. Alex Smiley.
OccupyProWrestling.com.
He's got a character named Aeon Chronos. I think that's how he says it. And he's kind of a time traveler. And I know it's a little bit, unrealistic, but he does it really well. And Alex just has such a creative mind that, I'm sitting there like, I wish I'd thought of that, but there's no way I could have ever executed that. So shout out to Alex for having that kind of brain.
Alex is very good people.
Yeah. So I'd say that's probably kind of almost like a time traveler that can, if you can execute it well. I don't think I could have ever executed it though.
Also from Anna, if you had to RP as an actual real wrestler, who would it be and why?
Okay. So starting in the hobby, like I said earlier, you could choose to be a real wrestler or a made-up wrestler. So I actually did, for the first couple of years, I had 3 wrestlers that I role played as. I was Riptide, aka Dominic Sanders, and I was Doink the Clown.
Yes.
And I actually did okay as Doink, and I was the Brooklyn Brawler. You're talking about, I mean, you could be you could be Stone Cold, you could be Bret Hart, you could be Shawn Michaels, and this freaking 12-year-old over here chooses to be the Brooklyn Brawler. Like I said, when I first started wrestling, I wasn't really into heels or anything like that. But I mean, come on, who's going to be Brooklyn Brawler? And I was heel doink too. I wasn't even face doink. I was heel doink. So those were probably the only two real wrestlers I've ever role played as. And I think I even won a championship with the Brooklyn Brawler. So
incredible.
Yeah.
Finally, from Brock, he's got a few of them. Are you ready?
I'm ready. I've already pre-read these, but I'm ready for them.
What was it like being trapped on the highway for 14 hours?
So here's a good story. Some of you know it, some of you don't. A couple weeks ago, it was the week after Valentine's Day. We had the South was just hit with ice and snow, bad winter storm. Worst I've ever seen since I moved out here I was actually born and raised in California, but I call myself a Texan. So, worst I've seen in the 17, 18 years I've been out here. And, finally that Friday, the roads were fine in Mississippi where I work, and the roads were fine in Texas where I live. So I was like, okay, I'm sure they're fine the whole drive. I'm just going to go ahead and hop on the highway, and I'm going to go home for the weekend. And so I start going west from Mississippi to Texas, and I get to Shreveport, Louisiana. Took me 5 or so hours even to get to Shreveport, which is normally a 3-hour drive. And I get there, and the sun's going down, and the ice is starting to melt over again. So the Shreveport Department of Transportation and the Louisiana Department of Transportation decide that they're going to shut down Interstate 20 and not tell anybody. They didn't put anything on Twitter, social media, didn't put anything on the radio, didn't come by the cars and make an announcement or anything. They literally just shut the highway down. And I sat in the same spot from 7:30 p.m. on Friday the 19th, I think it was, until 7:30 a.m. on Saturday the 20th. And again, because they didn't say anything to anybody, I didn't know if we were going to start moving or if we were going to or stay there or what. So what I did was I would set my alarm for 30 minutes and I would sleep. And my alarm would go off and I'd wake up and I'd make sure that nobody moved. And if they didn't, I'd go back to bed or sleep. And I slept in my car in my driver's seat for 5 hours, and finally was awake enough to where I just waited. And finally we got moving. I left that day, that Friday at 1 p.m. I left Mississippi, and I got to Fort Worth, Texas at 3 p.m. on Saturday. So I was on the road for 26 hours. Longest day of my life, obviously. Really, really glad I didn't have to go to the bathroom, if you know what I mean. I went outside to do what I needed to do, but I'm just glad I didn't have to do anything more. I watched men and women get out of their cars and do the same thing. And so we were all just kind of stuck there on the highway for 12 hours. We literally, once we started finally moving, there were cars that broke down because they ran out of gas. Luckily, I had just filled up like 30 miles before, so I was good on gas, but we had to go around those cars because they were dead. Some people were just still sleeping, but craziest day of my life, craziest night of my life, by far. You know, someone said, that's a story you can tell your grandkids. I'm like, well, I'm probably going to. I tell everybody anything anyway. So,
we're telling it here on the podcast, yeah. What was your plan if a number 2 had to happen?
I didn't have a plan. The good thing is I hadn't really eaten that day because I was intermittent fasting. So there really wasn't anything in the old system. So
no plan B.
No plan B, which is not always a great thing, by the way.
Of all the scoring systems EWC has had, what scorecard did you like the best?
So for people that don't know, again, you're just like, oh my God, EWC again. But for people that don't know, we used a scorecard, and you know, we'd like to see you hit certain points just to make sure that you cover your bases on writing in an entertaining and thorough role play. And so like right now, you know, there's a section for character development. There's a section for your argument and your homework points and entertainment and creativity and all that kind of stuff. I like the one that we have now. You know, for a while there, we had one where it was like it favored people that were character development heavy, which I hated that one because I've never been character development heavy. There was one where it favored people that were shoot heavy, and I loved it because I've always just been someone to just write dialogue. But a lot of people hated it because they want to write a story. So the one we have right now was really good and really balanced. So I'd say probably the one we got currently. Brock?
Also from Brock, what's harder roleplay wise, limit or no limit? Good question.
That is a good question. You know, I've done both, especially since joining the EWC. I've done both. I think no limit to me is harder because you know that you can just write and write, and sometimes you start to kind of what you said earlier, Mikey, filler.
Yeah.
And when you start to write filler, that's when it becomes a little bit less interesting. You know, I mentioned earlier when I was in the EMF, here's a secret that I don't think I've ever told anybody, but when I was in the EMF and I knew I had to write 15,000 words, I actually took an old speech from like an inauguration address from like a president, and I reworded it to sound like something smart and intelligent that Dominic Sanders was saying. So like it was like, for the people, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, for the EW or the EMF, blah, blah, blah. Like I just reworded a speech. And yeah, I know it's kind of cheating, but I want to match that way. So soon. But when you start to have to write a ton of words, or you feel like you have to write a ton of words, that's when you start to kind of get in trouble. Because you can write 4,000 words that comes off as crap, and your opponent can write 4,000 words that's just brilliant. But they can also write 5,000. You don't know how many they're going to write if it's no limit. If you've got a 1,000-word limit, you know that you're both confined to 1,000 words, and you can make both. You know, you can make it work. But so I think it's harder to actually write with a no-word limit.
You, Bobo, Anna, and Chris are stuck on a deserted island, and you have a way off, but can only take one. Who do you take and why?
All right. So a little backstory to this. Bobo writes, his name's Bob. He writes Iggy Swango over in the EWC. Anna writes Melody Malone, and Chris writes Cyrus Black. And we're all in a stable together before I retired. And we're all, you know, pretty good friends as far as we've gotten to know each other really well out of character. So the answer to this question, I would take Bobo with me for a couple of reasons. Number one, you leave Anna and Chris alone on the island, and everything's going to be just fine. They will handle it. They will take care of business, and they will survive perfectly fine. I would take Bobo with me because Bobo is a genius at music, and he would keep me entertained on our trip back to the mainland or whatever. And also Bobo is a lot like me in the sense that he absolutely loves beer of any kind and all shapes and sizes. So
hard to argue that.
Perfect. He's the perfect boat mate. So
cheers to Bobo. Checkers or chess?
Chess. Checkers is a little more simple. I like chess. You know, I mean, I'm not sitting there like I'm never going to be one competing and hitting the little buzzer or whatever. But chess it's kind of fun, and it takes a little bit of thinking. And actually, it's just kind of I'm always the kind of person to analyze my second, third, and fourth move. There's not really that in checkers, in my opinion. You get that in chess. So, chess.
What's your favorite color?
Gray. I know it's kind of weird. A lot of people are like, gray's not even a color, dude. But it goes with everything. And my eyes tend to be gray. I've just always been a fan of gray. It's weird. If I had to choose an actual color, it's purple. So
Gripple. You heard it here first. Favorite beer?
ooh, shoot. Anything IPA, really. I know Mikey likes that answer.
Yes, sir.
We're big IPA people. In fact, I'm kind of surprised we both went with liquor tonight, but
You
that's
told
what
me
he
to.
had, and that's what I had. So I know, like 3 weeks ago, I said, "Hey, I'm gonna have a bottle of tequila, so be prepared."
So I went and
And
bought
then-
tequila.
So he bought tequila, and I had whiskey, and I got off the keto diet. So I really like IPAs. One of the favorite IPAs I've ever had is it's called Optimum. It's 12.5%,
Yes.
and it tastes really good. It's not even technically legal in Mississippi, so I can't get it anywhere. Mississippi can't sell anything over 10%, which sucks.
That's crazy.
But I like Optimum. I'm a big fan of some local breweries in Texas. I like El Chignon is a good beer. I like just about anything Raw and Sons. They've got a really good Scotch ale. I know my man from Fort Worth is gonna like hearing some of these suggestions, but Martin House Brewery in Fort Worth, Texas has some good ones. In fact, they've got a pickle beer, which is it's like a sour kind of beer that tastes like pickles. A lot of you were like, "That's disgusting,"
I'm in.
but you mix that with tomato juice, and you answer multiple questions in this podcast, and it's really good. So
That's awesome. Great answer.
yeah.
How many beers have you had, Tone? How many whiskeys have you had?
I think I'm on like my fourth whiskey right now, but if he's asking how many in my life, I literally cannot give him an answer. I mean, some of you guys have known me to drink like 20 plus in a setting. So, like I said, I'm a big guy. Okay. Sue me.
Tone's a wild man.
Yeah. A wild man. President Mac likes to call me an alcoholic, whatever. Same thing. But,
Same.
this bottle right now is about half full, half empty, depending on how you look at it. But I'm on my fourth whiskey.
Same. Halfway. You love to see it, Christy. Tone, that's the questions we got for you, buddy. This was a blast.
A lot of fun, man. I really appreciate you having me. We talked about this over and over again in the last couple of weeks. I told you, I was like, oh man, I don't even know what I'm going to say. And I've been a little nervous, but no, it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed the hobby. I enjoy the people that I've met. Like I said before, if you need to reach out to anybody, my DMs are always open. Just reach out to me. I can try and help as best I can. The one thing I can't literally help with is I'm not going to ship you a bunch of money or anything, so don't ask.
Damn it.
But, damn it, right? But I'll literally try and help the best I can. I mean, there have been guys in this game. You can ask some people. I'm not going to name names, but I've actually Venmo'd multiple people in this hobby some money just to help them get bills paid, because I know they'll Venmo me back. And I know President Mac's listening right now, and he says that I owe him $200 because I've lost bets to him. Literally one time, I sent him a picture. I said, "Hey, guess what beer I'm drinking? I'll give you $100 if you guess right." And he goes, "Molson Canadian." I'm like, fudge. So he was right, and told you I wasn't gonna drop any F-bombs. I'm not gonna do it. But
So close.
I know. We're getting to that point. We still got 37 minutes, Mikey.
Is there anybody else you want to plug, promote, put over? Anybody else you want to give love to before we go?
Yeah, the efedtees.com. No.
.com.
Honestly, as good as the people at the EWC have been to me, and it's a great Fed. I've plugged them enough.
EWC, the number 4 life.com.
That's right. And I've been a part of the XHF network, a bunch of great people. They're in the Efed podcast. I've gotten to know them really well too, to the point to where I'm not even in any of their feds anymore, but I'm still talking to them all the time. People from Adrian and Mav and Karoy and all those guys, Robbie and Bailey. Tons of people over there. I want to give them a shout out because Even when I told them that I wasn't going to be a part of any of their Feds anymore, I just didn't have time. They were all like, "Hey man, just stay in the Discord, like just be with us." And it made me feel a part of it. I mean, so I want to give them a shout out. I want to give a shout out to the people in the Efed podcast. You guys are great. I've really, really enjoyed getting to know all of you guys. Shout out to you, Mikey. Honestly, like you do a lot of thankless work. A lot of people out there have given you crap for some stuff in the past, and you don't deserve it. Like you really don't. You do really hard work, and the fact of the matter is there are a lot of people out there who they tune in to listen to stuff like this, like not even necessarily to listen to me, but to listen to you talk to people like me. And it's not I'm not the main attraction, you are. So shout out to you. Shout out to Brian for being the guy that's going to edit half this shit out. Hopefully it's not that bad. I mean, there have been some other ones that he's had to sit there and hit the edit button over and over again, but hopefully this wasn't too bad. But shout out to you guys. Shout out to President Mac. Like I said, the EWC has been great to me. Mac, I know we have gotten at each other's throats for the last 3 years, and now that I'm working with you, I see why you are the way you are. So I'm actually relaxing on that a little bit. So, but no, shout out to the Efed community though. Like, I want you guys to know that this is a hobby that it's not for everybody. It really isn't. You have to have a little bit of a thick skin to do it, because you might be writing something and putting a lot of effort into something that you're not even going to win. And if you can get past that, then you can do a lot of other things outside of this community. I want you to understand that. So, like I said, glass number 4 of whiskey, but I become that like philosophizer. Become a philosophizer.
No one makes me bleed my own blood. I love it. I love it, Tony. This was a blast. I had a great time. I appreciate hanging out.
Hey,
appreciate the kind words, Brian. I know Brian and I both. And hey, one more time before we go. Cheers.
Cheers.
And we're back, guys. That was a great interview with Tony, 5 A's.
Tejas, Tony.
Great member of the Discord, really good friend of the show. He's been asking questions, being part of the community, and doing everything to help us grow. Really appreciate Tony's contributions, and really excited to get his interview finally in here on the show.
Yes, it's been a very long awaited, at least by him, if no one else, right?
Well, I was long awaiting it too, Brian. There we go. Tony, I'm hoping to meet him here in a few weeks when I make it down his direction in Texas.
100% great interview. I just am saying, there was a lot of talk. For those of you who are in the Discord, and if you're not, I mean, what are you doing? Listening to this and not being in the Discord, it's a great time over there. We had Tony was definitely very hyped, very ready, counting down the days, doing the things, ready to go for his interview, and it showed. It was a great interview. We all liked it. We all loved it. It's good stuff.
That's right. And shout out to Tony, also a patron for a long time, supporting the show and doing the extras with us here for the last few months.
Indeed.
So shout out to Tony. Thanks for doing the interview, buddy. We enjoyed having him on, and we're excited to have you on. Check out the rest of the Efed Podcast schedule in the Efed Podcast Discord. Ooh. Otherwise, guys, we'll catch you in 2 weeks. Two. As we've changed the bi-weekly schedule, we appreciate your patience. I've taken on soccer coaching. I'm opening up an Efed. I've done so much more. And we're doing what we can to keep this Efed Podcast going. We appreciate your patronage. We're excited to bring you more exclusive content on Patreon. Not only the video interviews with Tony, but we've also got an exclusive audio interview coming up with Andy Bloxam, former E-Feder, now E-Tired, and much, much more coming to the Patreon. Check it out. We got the Egg Bandits interview and so much more over there.
100%. It's a great place to be. If you're not there, be there, or be a fucking isosceles triangle.
Patreon.com/EFED Podcast. We'd love to have you join us.
Bong.
All right, guys, that's going to wrap us up for the Efed Podcast, episode 69. Heyo.
Hey-o.
Guys, thanks so much for joining us. We're going to keep this rolling. We got 30 more episodes to episode 100. I'm so excited to reach it. And we've got the schedule locked up till then. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks here on the Efed Podcast. For Brian, I'm Mikey. Thanks for joining us. Efed Podcast, where the wrestling is written, but the characters are real.
You've been listening to the Efed Podcast, only on the Atomic Jobcast Network, presented commercial-free on Patreon.